back to TaraChessAcademy, and today we are going to discuss puzzles about Smothered Mate.
Hi everyone!
Hi everyone!
Yeah, for today we prepared interesting positions, so let's start. In the first position, you will see a nice example of Smothered Mate, and Tara, by the way, which piece makes a Smothered Mate?
So the knights typically make the Smothered Mates, and the enemy king will be blocked in by their own pieces. So we're going to see some really interesting positions about Smothered Mate today.
Yeah, you're right, thank you. So let's start with this puzzle. We play white, and white mates in 2 moves. I think that would be nice for us to start with check. So Tara, please, what ideas do you have?
So let me tell you all the squares I can see that white can make a check. White can make a check by queen to e7, knight to h7, knight to h7, and queen to g8. Also, so we've done those 3, and let me think. Oh, knight to d7, that one is also a check. And the same knight to h7 will be another check.
I agree.
Can you find anything else? I don't think I can.
I think that I also have a move queen f7 in this position.
Oh right,
So,
yeah, queen to f7 is the final move.
Yeah, so there are many candidate moves. Let's think what we can do. So for instance, if in this position the knight goes to h7, I think the rook just captures.
Right, and if the knight captures the rook, it won't be a smothered mate because the king has many squares that he can be able to move to, such as e8, or yeah, the king can move to e8.
Yeah, so that's why it's not mate. So knight h7 doesn't work. Okay, as I can see, h7 is defended, yeah. And to be honest, I don't want to move the knight away from f6 because I like that it controls e8 and g8 in this position. So I have a feeling that we're gonna mate with a knight on g5. So let's think where else it can get. And maybe we can free some squares for the knight.
Well, I'd like to free up the e6 square for the knight because if it does get there, we can notice that would be a checkmate, right? The king has no squares to escape to. But how do we get that square available for the knight? I noticed that the queen on e6 is blocking the knight's ability to move to e6. So I'm going to move the queen to f7 so that I free up that square and also make a check at the same time.
Okay, so the queen is defended by the knight on g5, and that's why the king can't capture it. So black has to take with the knight. Do we have mate in 1 in this position?
We do. The knight can move to e6. So the knight is attacking the king, and the other knight is controlling the e8 and g8 escape squares.
Yeah, so smothered mate. Okay, I hope that this puzzle is interesting and we can go to the next one. Okay, so this time we play white, but it takes a little bit more moves to mate the king, and we're looking for mate in 4. White to move, mate in 4 moves. All the moves should be with check, I suppose. So Tara, what ideas do you have?
So let's identify the checks that we have as always, right? Queen to h6, queen to g7, knight to f7, or queen to h7. So these are the checks that I can see. Do you see any other checks?
No, I don't. So we have 4 candidate moves in this position.
So we have these 4 checks, and let's start out by analyzing a few of them. If the queen captures the pawn on h6, and probably black will capture a queen because that's the best move. Now if we try moving the knight on h4 to g6, for example, the king can escape to g8
Or
or
G7.
g7 like you said. So I don't see how I can really make a checkmate because the king has so many possibilities here. It can move to h7, it can move to g8, it can move to these two squares, and I don't think we can control both of them in a single move.
Yeah, I agree. So it looks like after queen takes h6, we give even more space to the king, yeah? Like plus g7. So that's why I don't think that queen takes h6 works. Let's try something else. So our task is to block the king, right? It should have less space.
So with that in mind, we probably don't need to calculate queen to g7 as much because we realize that if the king gets escape squares, so for example, if the queen captures the pawn and the king captures it back, the king is getting escape squares, so it probably won't work.
I agree. So let's try something else.
How about we try queen to h7? Because in this variation, I'm not letting the king get an escape square, but at the same time, I'm attacking the king.
So the queen is defended by the bishop, and that's why the black king can't capture it, but the knight can. So knight takes h7, yeah, -1 square for the king. Okay, what should we do now?
So now we should give another check, but we have to be careful about which piece we need to use for this check. If we use the knight on e5 to give a check on g6, it would allow the king to escape, but especially because it allows the king to escape to f7. But if the knight stays on e5,
Yeah. So
yeah,
if we use another knight on h4, yeah?
if the knight stays on f5 on e5, it will be controlling the f7 escape square, so we don't have to worry about the king escaping there.
Okay, so the knight takes the bishop, yeah? And very good for us that f7 is controlled by the knight. So the king goes to h8, and do we have mate in 1? What do you think?
We do. We can move the knight on e5 to g6 so that the other knight is controlling g8 and the king is in a checkmate because it has nowhere to go and nothing to do.
Yeah, you're right. So knight from e5 to g6, yeah, it's the best plan in this position. Okay, so you see, when you have several candidate moves, it's important to calculate them, yeah, to make the right decision. Because if you move the wrong knight to g6, you can lose your advantage. So that's why knight h4 to g6 is the only right move. Okay, this puzzle is nice. Yeah, you see that also, like, knights help a lot, both like white, black knights, because the black knight on h7 also blocks the king. So let's go to the next puzzle. Yeah, this puzzle is different. As you can see, just 4 pieces on the chessboard, but even in this situation, it's possible for white to mate the black king using the knight. But of course, most of the, I would say all the moves would be without check. And one important detail, yeah, that the black pawn moves down. Yeah, it moves this way. So Tara, please, what ideas do you have?
Well, can you please click the knight so that so that the viewers can see all the possibilities? So the knight can move to b4, c5, c7, or b8. We probably don't want to go back to c7 or to b8 because time is very precious here. We have 4 moves, so we should spend each of those moves should be useful. So I don't think we should move our knight to c7 or to b8, but we do have to calculate b4 or c5. So let's start out by calculating b4 because it seems closer than moving it to c5.
Okay.
So the king can't move anywhere, and if the pawn moves to c7, or to
To
a2, which is black's only move, we might be able to think, you might be thinking about moving the knight or the king, but if we move the knight to d3 to try and get it even closer, the king has no squares.
It's a stalemate, yeah.
Mhm.
And also, if we try to avoid stalemate in this position and, for instance, place king b3, yeah, after king b1, of course, there is no mate. So, yeah, position could be like this, but it's just a draw position. There is nothing white can do. So it looks like the first move, knight b4, doesn't work. Let's try something else.
So let's try our other candidate move, which is knight to c5. So after knight to c5, there is one possibility that you might already be thinking about, which is knight to b3. And this is a check. So if the pawn moves to a2, we can make a checkmate with knight to b3.
Yeah.
But with that
Mate
in
in
mind,
2 instead of mate in 4, yeah?
But with that in mind, black probably won't do that, and they'll move the king to a2 to stop the checkmate.
And
Or
of
to
course,
prevent.
we should not play knight b3, yeah, because it's a stalemate in this position. So what should we do? If knight c5 is the right move, there should be mate in 3.
So now I'm considering knight to d3. So after knight to d3, the king will have to move to a1 because that's black's only move. And then
maybe now you can stop the video. Yeah, if someone of you want to find mate in 2 in this position, I think that it could be a nice puzzle. Yeah, so you can just stop the video, take your time, and try to calculate mate in 2. Yeah, and Tara, you can continue to show us the solution.
So if you're back, hopefully you found the right solution, which is knight to c1. So after knight to c1, the black king cannot move anywhere because the knight and the king are controlling the king's escape squares. So the king the pawn has to move to a2. And now we've made it to the maiden one, which is knight to b3 checkmate.
Yeah. So just nice puzzle, you see? If you get position like this, you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't think that it's just a draw position and there is nothing you can do. Yeah, so just continue your calculations and for sure you will find the right solution. Yeah, so nice smothered mate.
Yeah, good job to those of you who were able to solve that position. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video to others. I'll see you on my next video. Bye!
Bye!